Good morning.
Good morning.
It is an odd day, and that's all right. I think every time the time shifts, there's always disruption on that Sunday. So today we stand on sacred ground in the story that Jesus is telling. This is Luke's, we often call this Luke's Sermon on the Plain. Jesus has just come down to a level place among the people, and he begins to speak not from a mountaintop of power, but from the shared soil of human struggle. And what he says is nothing short of revolutionary, almost hard for even us to hear, right? He says, blessed are you who are poor, woe to you who are rich, love your enemies, do good to those who hate you. These are not quaint spiritual platitudes. These are dangerous words, subversive words, words that, if taken seriously, could upend the world as we know it. Words that, if we repeat them in our own town square, as many of us are willing to do these days, would classify us as terrorists among the state for our anti-capitalist views. Jesus begins with blessings and woes. But notice, he doesn't spiritualize poverty or hunger. He doesn't say, blessed are the spiritually poor, which is how I've often heard this particular section of the Bible preached. He literally says, blessed are you who are poor. Period. Amen?
Amen.
In Luke's gospel, the poor are not metaphors, they are real people. And the rich, they are not merely those with full hearts, as again, I've heard many a pastor preach this section, but those with full bellies and full bank accounts. This is a gospel that names economic injustice. It names exclusion. It names grief. And it promises that God is not neutral. God is on the side of the brokenhearted, the hungry, the hated. Then Jesus pivots and says the thing we all don't want to hear. Love your enemies. Not tolerate, not ignore, love. And here's where it gets hard. Because we live in a world where enemies are not an abstract. We live in a world where people fly planes into buildings, where bombs are strapped to bodies, where hate is broadcast on screens and legislated into laws. We live in a world where terror is real. And yet, Jesus says, do good to those who hate you. How? Makes me mad. I don't want that direction. So, not by being naive. Let's agree to that. Not by excusing violence, but by refusing to let fear dictate our ethics. by refusing to mirror the hatred and the behavior we receive, by refusing to become what we despise. Amen?
Amen.
Do you hear me?
Yes.
Locals carried on protests outside our ICE
Yeah.
facilities. The man in the chicken suit staring directly at playing the frog, now multiple frogs,
Yes.
in balloon-style costumes, dancing and mocking at the agents. While the spirit is humorous, the joy is real, their meaning is not. Human dignity is no joke. And those who carry on the policies of violence among the least among us will surely bear the fruits of their own destruction. We, however, do not have to follow their path. This is the ethic that animated Dr. King. It is the ethic that dismantled apartheid. It is the ethic that Jesus lived all the way and through the cross, where, if you will remember, he chose to forgive the sins of a guilty criminal whose death was on display as entertainment before offering forgiveness to all of us. I don't know what crime that man committed to recognize that he precedes me into heaven. I have to assume it was bad enough to warrant a graphic and painful death. But Jesus said that it was still not enough to warrant damnation. And that is good enough for me. And it is this ethic of radical acceptance and unconditional love that we are called to embody in our politics, our protests, our prayers, even within our own family of believers. And that is aggravating. I have daydreamed of a day when those who have hated me, who have attempted to systematically hate my people, who would be overcome and destroyed. Let's just get honest. Let's get real. I would probably laugh, if only to myself, to see those who oppress the sick, the powerless, or poor meet their just ends. Should our systems of justice ever be revived in this age? Yet, Jesus says, love them. How do I love a fascist or a bully? How do I love someone who condemns and cheats me out of what is mine? How do I love someone who simply, passively hates me? My earthly father, my dad, Don Mann, is not my biggest fan. Something we've come to understand about each other. We have both wondered over the course of our relationship how we are even related sometimes. Most of the divides in our relationship follow political and religious lines. We do not see eye to eye on many things, including theology and sexuality, despite worshiping the same God. Several years ago, when marriage equality was kind of the hot topic of the day, I'm sure we all recall those days, the famous protest at the time was a baker refusing to bake wedding cakes for queer weddings. Remember the day? Remember when that was the hardest thing we were dealing with? Now, honestly, I found this form of protest kind of pathetic, as well as bad for business. As every study ever conducted on marketing and business states very clearly that the best way for a business to grow is to diversify. Diversity pays its own dividends. But the baker involved made their choice. lawsuits ensued and their protest ended in their favor, whatever favor they won, I don't know. Cut to a conversation I'm having with my dad, who out of nowhere said something along these lines. That's not the Christian thing to do. If they really wanted to demonstrate Jesus, they should have baked 3 cakes for the wedding and gave those cakes to the people for free. I think to say that I was shocked was an understatement. There was no debate. I was not in the conversation to change my dad's mind. He brought up the subject. I didn't. I hope in some subtle way to say that even though we stand opposed to one another on the issue, the expression of love embodied by Christ is clear. Give them all the love they can handle and let God sort it out.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Jesus ends this section with the golden rule. Do unto others what you would have them do to you. In a world of drones and data surveillance, of refugee crises and rising fascism, this rule is not simplistic. It is prophetic. It asks us, what kind of world do we want to live in? What kind of people do we want to be? Friends, the gospel is not safe. It is not sentimental. It is a call to live dangerously, to love dangerously, in a world that teaches us to fear. So may we be people who bless the poor, who comfort the grieving, who feed the hungry, and who, yes, even love our enemies. Not because it's easy, but because it's the only way to heal this broken world. Amen.